It's nice to be out and about in the hills here with my camera, just pottering about, seeing what I can see. But it's late summer here in Scotland, and that means that the ground's wet and the chances of it raining are pretty high. So there are some things you can do to make sure that your kit is ready for when that happens. But before we talk about that, we should actually talk about the most important bit of equipment that you take out with you, which is you. So that is the first thing that needs to be protected and dry and warm. So I've got some wellies on. So you'll want some wellies or some nice boots. I've got some waterproof trousers, and I've got this smock which is waterproof as well as being kind of nice and long, so when I'm crawling about in the heather and all the muck, it keeps me pretty kind of away from all of it. I've also got a hat and gloves, and these are really important, especially if you're going up on the hills. I would always in fact take 2 pairs of gloves, because there's nothing worse than having cold hands in wet gloves, because they're never going to warm up again. But especially if you're going up in the hills, or you're going to be sitting really still waiting for some wildlife or whatever, it's amazing how cold you can get, even on a day when if you were walking around you'd just be in short sleeves and no bother. So it's always worth thinking in terms of having a few extra layers for the wildlife photography, just because you're going to be crawling about or you're going to be sitting really still. So that's the first thing. That's going to you being protected. Now onto the kit. Now, most camera equipment, like modern camera equipment, is pretty well weather sealed. So my Z7 and 500mm are both weather sealed to the extent that they're okay in a shower, they're okay if you get a splash of water on them. But obviously in absolutely torrential rain, you don't want to be letting them just be exposed to that, because eventually moisture is going to get in, and moisture, once it gets inside, you're going to get fogging on the elements, and it's just going to be an absolute pain to dry out. So if you can prevent water getting in the first place, it's going to be much easier to kind of continue using your kit sort of, let's say, the next day or later on that day if it's been raining really hard. So underneath this cover on here, you can see my lens is in a neoprene lens coat. Now that doesn't necessarily stop water, but it does stop muck, and it keeps the lens in nice condition. And something that I will always say to people is keep your lenses and your cameras in the best condition you possibly can. As I did say though, they're tools. They're here for you to take pictures with, so if they do get scratched and bumped, or the lettering wears off or whatever, don't worry about it. If it works, it works. Keep using it, keep taking pictures. So I've got this camera in a protective waterproof cover. This one is actually one that I made myself out of the trouser leg of an old pair of waterproof trousers. And so this is Gore-Tex here, and it kind of cinches onto the front of the lens. It's kind of fairly tight with this Velcro piece around here, and then I just finish it off with a bit of bungee. It's got a couple of kind of Velcro closures to kind of keep it tight on the lens. And then at the back here, I've got a couple of bits of Velcro that I've glued on, so I can close this up. I'd parcel it better than that if I was actually in the rain, but that means I can have it on my shoulder so it's accessible, and I'm able to kind of react quickly if something happens, even in the rain, but it's protected from the rain, so I don't have to worry about it being super wet. I'd always advocate having the camera on your shoulder if you can. Obviously if you've got some monster of a lens, you probably have to carry it in your rucksack, otherwise it'll just break your shoulders. But if you can have your kit on your shoulder, you're much more likely to take sort of quick reactive photos when something happens, and those, I find, are some of the best ones, some of the best moments, and not the ones you expect. You might be walking to some location and something happens. You want to be able to just take a picture. But anyway, I'm going off topic, which, as you probably know by now, is something I do quite often. So, how else do I keep my kit nice and dry? Well, my camera bag is a dedicated camera bag, and when I use it, I'm very happy with everything in it being dry because it is really well sealed. All the zips have got seals along them. The top is like a roll top, like a dry bag. And so if I'm out on a kind of dedicated photography walk and I've got this rucksack, that's the end of the story. Everything in here, I'm pretty comfortable. It's going to be nice and dry. However, quite often I might go backpacking with more kit than I would be able to fit in this, or I might just want to go for a quick walk with less kit and not have this big rucksack. In which case, what I tend to have are little kind of inserts with all my camera kit in a sort of little padded, divided boxes, and I have them in dry bags. I've got a sort of little collection of these kind of dry bags. And the thing I look for in a dry bag is not to be too lurid a colour and to have this loop on the back here, because that means that if I haven't got a kind of camera bag with me and I've set up camp from my big rucksack and I just want to take a few bits and pieces and my camera and go for a walk, I just turn the dry bag into a bag by putting a strap through here, closing up the dry bag, clipping the top together, another strap on here, and that's a shoulder bag straight away. And if you've seen my videos from watching the beavers last year in Knapdale, I was doing that because I took a big rucksack to take all my camping kit in, and then I didn't want to have a second rucksack with me because that would be effort to carry that about, and I just had the dry bag with my kit in when I went down to the lake to watch the beavers, and that works really quite well. So you finished your photography for the day, and it's been tipping down with rain, which it hasn't been here today luckily, but I just wanted to record this now while I had the chance. It's actually my third time of trying to record this because the last two times I buggered it up. The first time the camera position moved while I was filming, lost the kind of visual footage. Second time was the time I discovered that my lav mic was in fact broken and I had no audio. So hopefully this time we're getting both and I'll actually be able to edit this together for you. Anyway, you finished your photography. You're going back to your camp or your car or your home and everything's a bit wet. One of the first things you want to do is try and dry off the surface water as much as you possibly can. I have kind of tissues and towels in various places. I've got some in this bag, I've got one in the boot of the car that I specifically use for padding down kit before I kind of set off. If there's kind of loose debris on the camera or on the lens, then I actually use this, which is a little makeup brush. And the thing about this makeup brush is it's one of these ones that sort of collapses into itself, and then you can brush away any crap with that. Definitely don't do that when it's still wet. You wait until it's dry to do that, but if it's just dry muck, very easy to just get rid of that, like, you know, little bits of foliage and pine needles and things, just get rid of it with that. And absolutely, this is not for the sensor or anything inside the camera. This is very much external cleaning. I might do a short video on sensor cleaning and cleaning the sort of elements inside the camera, but that's not for today. This is just the kind of external kind of quick cleaning between uses. That's that. Now that just lives in my photo bag, so it's always accessible. And I've also actually got a rocket blower, usually to, you know, one of those air blowers that you use to blow dust and crap off of things, but it's not in here. I'm not quite sure where it is, somewhere in the house. Hopefully Ivy hasn't found it, in which case I might need a new one. So you've done your kind of general surface clean and everything's kind of not dripping wet but still damp. The next thing you have to decide is whether it's significantly colder outside than it is where you're going to be stopped. If it's going to be cold, if it's been cold and you're going to go into somewhere warm and everything's wet, you don't actually want to take your camera gear straight into that environment because you're going to get condensation forming. So you want to do one of two things. You either want to actually just leave your kit outside or in the cold somehow, if you're going to, before the next time you use it. If let's say you're on a 2-day trip in a bothy, don't take the camera gear right inside the bothy. If there's a porch or something, leave it out there so it stays cooler and it doesn't build up that condensation. The other thing that you can do is you could take your camera bag with everything in it into your house or tent or car, whatever, and let it warm up to temperature inside the bag, everything kind of in there, and then take it out and start drying it, because that way you'll get less condensation. Once you are kind of back and you need to really kind of get the last of the moisture off though, I recommend using these things, which are rechargeable silica gel pads. Now I wouldn't normally carry this with me in my camera bag, it's only in there for making this video. I usually keep these at home, or if I'm doing a kind of a longer trip, I will maybe have one in my pelly case where I kind of keep all my kit kind of separate for the rest of the stuff. And basically this has got silica gel inside. Once you dry it out, it's a desiccant. This is just like a big badass version of the little sachets of silica gel you might get with electronics or other products when you get it shipped to you. But the difference with this is that it's actually, because it's in a fabric-y thing rather than plastic, you can heat it up to drive the water off and then you can reuse it. And yeah, I thoroughly recommend these things. If you're interested in them, have a look on my website. There's a link to where you can get these off Amazon. Really useful. I tend to sit, I've got two of them, I tend to sit the camera body on one and the wet lens on the other and just leave it for 24 hours and come back to it after that and give it a final kind of wipe down and everything's grand. And I have never had kind of issues of moisture kind of later on when I've come back to the kit, or problems with fungus or anything growing in lenses, which is a thing that can happen if you don't look after your stuff, don't dry it out, and you just keep putting it away wet. Eventually you're going to get things like fungus growing on the lens elements in between the layers of the lenses, and that's terminal. That is the end of your lens. Eventually that will fog it up to the point that it's unusable. So yeah, just look after your kit and you'll be able to get out and take loads of great photos and have a great time out and about watching wildlife. So yeah, I hope this has been useful. Yeah, see you on the next one. Bye for now.